Hi, everyone. Hopefully, everyone can hear me. Welcome to Seeds of Change on the day after Earth Day. I certainly know I don't need to tell you that we live our lives in a state of constant information swirl, particularly when it comes to the environment. There's been so much dire news in the last few years, particularly being the hottest years on record. All of the fires, the floods, the hurricanes that we constantly hear about, and the continued losses of plants and animals on our planet. So we're really living in this climate crisis. And during this time, it's more important than ever that we come together like we are today to learn and to grow and to take meaningful action, to share some sadness, but also hope and resilience, all of which will and has been making a difference. And this is what Seeds of Change is really all about. Our rapid fire lineup of incredible speakers will each help us advance and strengthen the sustainable actions we can take ourselves. This year, our spotlight is on how to tell stories, which include the climate as part of the plot, the dialogue, the setting, or what a character cares about. And as someone who has commissioned content, I think there's so many interesting ways to go about that, and you'll hear about that today. But, when I think of some of the things we've done at the CBC, certainly the nature of things really covers that ground. For example, Plastic People, which is a doc about how microplastics get into everything, including our bodies and brains, and what to do about that. Certainly, some of the feature films we've supported have done that. And I like also because it can sometimes seem challenging to be like, okay, I have to do a whole show about this subject. I like when it's to see it organically brought into, all of our content. For example, North of North, a wonderful new series with Netflix. In one of the episodes, Ting is one of the main characters, goes missing, and there's just mention in there of how dangerous it has become for hunters in the north because of the thinning ice. So that was just like really slipped in there into the storyline. And Heartland had an episode focusing on the impact of a drought at the Heartland Ranch. So there's many different ways that it can happen. Um, this session will be held in English, but we have live translations in ASL, closed captioned in French. If you want to hear the session in French, just select the French option on the globe at the bottom of your screen. During the sessions, you can ask your questions on the question function on Zoom. If the speakers don't have time to answer all your questions, we will send you their answers as part of the follow-up. So we can't talk about sustainable progress and action without mentioning the critical roles that Indigenous peoples have played and are playing in fighting for environmental justice. I am here in Toronto, the unceded and traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, and is now home to many diverse French, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. In our 2-hour session today, you'll hear from speakers who approach storytelling in different ways, but all with the shared goal addressing climate change. We'll also hear from industry leaders about what they're doing behind the scenes to reduce their carbon emissions when they create a piece of content. And we have a tiny break with some music between the sessions to give your mind a rest, as it's a lot of information to take in. And with that, I will pass the mic to Laura Lynch, the host of CBC's fantastic What on Earth podcast, a podcast that's about hope in the face of climate change. Laura will remind us of the importance of hope and how to build your own eco resilience. Over to you, Laura.
Thanks very much, Sally. Of course, what we do on our show is not fiction. It is nonfiction. It's the real world out there. But Sally, as you say, one of the things that we do, I think, is provide hope, even as we provide these stories that are difficult, and that is because of the way the show was developed 5 years ago. When I pitched it as a program that would look at climate change, there wasn't anything like it at CBC at the time, and we created a show that was not only looking at climate change, but was looking at climate change solutions. Part of that was just for the very practical reason that we were pretty sure people didn't want to listen to episode after episode about what was going wrong in the world. And the fact is, there is so much that is being done by so many to try to address the challenges of climate change. So we went from a summer replacement show of 9 episodes 5 years ago to where we are today, which is a permanent series. We're now podcast first. We drop 2 podcasts a week that form the bulk of the broadcast show. And what these 5 years have taught me is just how expansive a topic climate change really is. And when you talk about weaving climate change into your stories, into your programming, it's everywhere. It shouldn't be difficult at all because it can fold into almost anything we talk about. And I'll give you an example of today, where after I finish speaking to you, I'm going to do an interview with a young woman who has been trying to and has had some success in persuading the Catholic Church to look at all of the land that it holds around the world, which is substantial by some reports, all of France and Spain, and use that, map it. She has been mapping it for them in order to help them see how the church can become more involved in working on biodiversity and working on climate, how it can use these lands to greater effect in the struggle against climate. And she met Pope Francis as part of this, and he was very supportive of it. So we're going to be talking to her about that kind of work today. So there you go. I mean, there is the Catholic Church and climate change, religion and climate change. The Catholics aren't the only ones who have talked about this. And I would challenge you to throw any topic at me, and I will probably be able to find a way to bring climate change into it. It's also really heartening to me over the last 5 years how the climate change space in my section of the media, in the nonfiction section, has really grown. We were pretty much alone out there in the first year or so. And now everywhere you look in Canadian media, in legacy media, there's so much more coverage, and in non-legacy media, of climate change. And so we can look around and welcome others to what we're doing, love the competition, love the breadth of coverage, love the depth of coverage. There's so much to talk about, and we're just happy that there are all a bunch of others talking about it as well. One of the things I was asked to talk about, which is how you can overcome eco-resistance. I am not so sure there's so much of that anymore. There may be in the fiction world, when you're trying to tell stories about fiction, where someone may back off and say, well, no one's going to want to watch that. But I think it's all in the way that you present it. In our world, what we've noticed is there's really very little resistance anymore. And it's not just because the people who listen to us are the people who care about climate change. Statistically, if you look at public opinion surveys, there are very few people who do not believe that climate change is real and that it's human caused. And we start from that premise. We don't debate that. That is where we begin to have the conversation. So some of the things we've talked about is just how to have conversations with people about climate in a way that doesn't turn them off if they happen to be those who aren't really sure that they understand it or believe it, which involves listening. And then just sort of gently asking more questions. And in a lot of cases, people who listen are the ones who are able to help others understand more about what's going on. But I think you'd be challenged to find a lot of those people around anymore. It's the landscape, so to speak, has really changed. Forgive the pun. One of the other things that I think is important to talk about is if you, like me, are immersed in the topic of climate change all the time. It can be overwhelming. It can be very anxiety producing. I am acutely attuned to it. It doesn't go away when I go home. It doesn't go away when I'm on holiday. I'm always aware of what is going on around me, particularly if there are crisis events happening around me. I'm in Vancouver, so live through the heat dome in 2021 and was terribly worried about my uncle who's in his 90s sweltering in his apartment, or during the atmospheric river in British Columbia, also in 2021, which was just so devastating to so many people. But I always pretty much know what's going on all over the world. So I have to make sure I make space for myself and my own mental health and tend to that. Otherwise, I become less effective in communicating the stories that I need to tell. So I find my own ways to do that. I live in North Vancouver, so I'm very close to the forest, and I spend a lot of time in there with my pup, who is also another great stress relief to have him around. I have taken the steps that I can take in a small way to deal with the challenges because I can afford it. I have the privilege to be able to afford a heat pump or an electric vehicle, and not everyone can. But these are smaller things that I can do that make me feel like I can make a difference. In addition to being able to share the story of climate change with others and show them how many people are out there in the world doing the work, trying to find answers, and really are absolutely successful in finding answers, large and small, and also questioning other solutions that may be out there, looking at the orthodoxy, looking at the practicability, and trying to do it in a way that always brings it back to the people involved in it. I think you all know that the way to make people care about something is to help it resonate with them, to tell a story of how this affects the people who are living through it. As much as we can, we try to do that as well. Is there frustration working in the space? Yeah. Especially when you go through what I've been going through for the last 3 or 4 weeks, covering an election where climate change has fallen way down the list of priorities for people. But that didn't mean we weren't going to pay attention to it. It was a much higher issue in the previous 2 elections. So we're focusing on it for our listeners, for our audience, because it matters to them. And we are telling them what they need to know about where the party's positions are. So that's just sort of the don't give up attitude that you need to have to tackle all of this. I think about finding hope all the time, and I find it every week in the people that I speak to, like this young woman who I'm about to interview, who are out there doing the work in the trenches. I get hope from young people who I talk to, who are perhaps those whose lives are most at stake in all of this, who care and who are out there leading the charge. I get hope from the emails that we get from people who really want stories to be told and care so much and bother to communicate with us. The last thing I want to say is, in terms of the word hope, I have been taught now that hope is better than optimism, because optimism lets you off the hook. It just means that you're pretty trusting things are going to work out. But if you hope for something, that means you have to work to make it real. So hope is essential in this line of work. And I commend to you all of the hope that you need to think about what needs to be told, what stories need to be told going forward. And I will leave it at that and turn things over to, I believe, Jemima Freudman, who is a CBC Senior Research Analyst. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Natasha, if you could share my slides, that would be great. So I'm going to be sharing some results from a study I did among around 2,000 Canadians, where I asked them their opinions on climate change, as well as their opinions on how climate change might be included in their entertainment, so their film and television. Next slide, please. So to start off, I asked them what the most important issues are facing Canadians today. And unsurprisingly, climate change has fallen quite dramatically. We've seen it drop from the 5th most important issue in 2024 down to the 10th most important issue in 2025. And we've seen similar studies reflecting the same thing. For example, I've linked an Angus Reid study down below that kind of says the same thing. Next slide, please. That being said, most Canadians are still really worried about climate change. There's no significant difference across regions, and there's been very little movement over time. So Canadians are just as concerned as they were last year, even if it doesn't have as much relative importance as it did. As you can see in this chart, we've got on the left-hand side those who have the highest belief in climate change, and over to the right we have those who have the lowest belief and are least concerned and least motivated. And as you can see, 59% of Canadians are among the most concerned. So the worry is still there. Next slide, please. I'm going to walk through the rest of my presentation through a storytelling spectrum. So I borrowed this from a playbook by Good Energy, which kind of outlines 4 different ways to include climate change in our stories, ranging from very subtle to very explicit. I will describe the different types of storytelling in more detail as we go through. Next slide, please. So climate placement, it's the most subtle type of storytelling. It's where climate-friendly behaviors are adopted by characters or woven into the setting. Maybe the main character has solar panels on their house, or maybe people are using reusable bags in a supermarket scene. Next slide. And everybody thought it was pretty effective. 9 in 10 people were comfortable with it. 8 in 10 thought it was important, particularly respondents who were racialized or were women or had children. They were far more likely to think it was important. And a majority thought it was effective. 71% agreed that showing climate-friendly behaviors on screen is a good way to encourage these same behaviors in real life. And as you can see, those little red bars there, only 8% of people actually disagreed. So such a tiny proportion. Next slide, please, Natasha. On to climate mentions. This is where characters mention climate change in passing, a little like how in North of North, it was mentioned that it's very dangerous for hunters in the north now to hunt with thinning ice. Next slide. A majority thought it was important. 7 in 10 people said that climate mentions in their film and TV was important, but that's with the addendum that it needs to feel natural. 43% agreed that references to climate change in characters' dialogue usually feels unnatural. So some care needs to be taken there when considering how we can include mentions in storytelling. Next slide. 9 in 10 people are very comfortable with climate mentions. This includes people who are maybe not as concerned about climate change. They're still comfortable with it being included. And over half of Canadians agree that hearing characters discussing climate change helps them feel like they're not alone. And this rises to 80% of people for those most concerned about climate change. So it can be a really effective, sort of comforting way to include climate change in our stories. Next slide. Climate World is a little bit more of an explicit type of storytelling. It's where climate-related events influence the story world meaningfully, but the story isn't directly about the climate crisis. Next slide. And there's a real appetite for this. Again, people are comfortable. They think it's important. 2 in 3 people want to see the way climate change affects all aspects of life within their programming. That being said, 43% said this kind of storytelling would make them feel a bit more anxious. So perhaps some caution needs to be taken there. Next slide. And then climate characters. This is where the story is about the climate crisis. It's characters, it's plot. They are driven by climate change. Next slide. And most people, again, thought it was interesting. They thought it was important. 2 in 3 thought it was important. 2 in 3 thought climate characters were interesting. Next slide. And when this storytelling is told, Canadians want it to be realistic. They want it to be serious, and they want it to be educational. But closely following that were adjectives such as positive and motivating. One thing to note is that tone is important because nearly half of Canadians do think that these kinds of plot lines can be too preachy. Next slide. So I had to really rush through that there. If anyone has any questions, I do have lots more insights on those different types of storytelling. But to wrap up, climate change has dropped in relative importance. But compared to this time last year, there's not actually very much change in how people feel about climate change. I asked lots of different questions and they were all pretty much the same as last year. And as we can see, there's an appetite for all sorts of different kinds of climate storytelling. And what everybody, including those who aren't too fussed about climate change, had the most agreement on was, next slide, please, Natasha. Essentially, I don't care if climate change is included in a story or not. The show just has to be good. So I think there is liberty here to include climate change in our storytelling, as long as we make sure the show remains good. Thank you. So I'm now going to pass you on to Shane Gross, who is a conservation photojournalist. Over to you, Shane.
Thank you so much. And hello, everybody. My name is Shane Gross. That's Gross as in disgusting. And I'm a marine conservation photojournalist. And if we could bring up the slides, please, Natasha. So I try to tell stories about the ocean and freshwater environments in order to, bring public awareness and also sometimes influence direct change. So a lot of these places underwater are overlooked and hidden underwater, and I try to bring that to a wider audience. Next slide. And I think the reason that I was invited to speak with you today is because of this image. These are Western toed tadpoles in a lake here on Vancouver Island where I live. And it was awarded the adult grand title of the Wildlife Photographer of the Year. I can't believe I get to say that. And so it's been seen by millions of people all around the world. The competition gets entries from 117 countries. So it's really an international event. Next slide. We're going to talk more about that later, but I thought I'd tell you just a little bit about myself really quickly. I grew up in Regina, Saskatchewan, far from any ocean, yet somehow, since before I can remember, I was interested in water. So whether it was the kiddie pool in the backyard in the summer, or next slide, the winters were a lot tougher, but I would pretend I was Jacques Cousteau and scuba dive into the carpet in the living room and look for my favorite animals in the world, which are sharks, which are absolutely affected by climate change, as is pretty well any species in the world. And, skipping over a lot of my life, I decided I wanted to explore the ocean with a camera. Next slide. So one day, still living in Regina, I marched into a bank and I took out a loan for a car and I went out and bought my first camera setup with it. Soon after that, I became a scuba instructor and moved to the Bahamas. And that's how I made my living, was teaching scuba diving, but really I wanted to be a photographer. Next slide. And in the Bahamas, I got to see a lot of my dreams come true. I got to see my first sharks underwater, like this great hammerhead shark in Bimini. Next slide. Or eagle rays. Next slide. Or sea turtles. So it was really an amazing place to learn about the ocean and grow as a photographer, and also learn about the ways that climate change are affecting these species, habitats, and of course the people in a low-lying island nation. But then COVID hit and I couldn't stay there anymore. Next slide. So I found myself back in Canada and decided to just check out Vancouver Island, which is where I now live. And, it's a completely different ecosystem with completely different animals, but you find the same thing over and over. Climate change is affecting basically everything that's here. Next slide. And one day, my partner and I were exploring a lake we'd never been to before. It was a beautiful summer day. We went snorkeling, and what we saw absolutely blew us away. Next slide. We found these huge swarms of tadpoles, Western toed tadpoles. These are a species at risk in Canada, and they're very temperature oriented. When they spawn, how long their eggs gestate is all determined by temperature. Next slide. But this place is still fairly pristine. There were millions of tadpoles. They would absolutely carpet the lake. There wasn't a square centimeter of lake bed that you could see in some areas. Next slide. And if we held still in the water, the tadpoles would come and carpet us. And if you've never been carpeted by tadpoles, I absolutely recommend it. It's hilarious. They're tiny, they're cute, and they just give us an appreciation for nature when we actually go out and experience it in these types of ways. Next slide. But as a professional photographer, it was important to me to get the best shot that represented the situation that I possibly could. This ended up being my favorite picture from that day, and I entered it in the Wildlife Photographer of the Year competition. And next slide. I was absolutely blown away to have been awarded the grand title. I got to go to London and go to a fancy award ceremony and all that, and which was great. But the real reward was getting to talk with so many people, getting to talk with them about these incredible animals and habitats. Next slide. This is just one example. I was on France 24, but I was on news programs literally all around the world in dozens of countries. Next slide. And I got to go to the Royal Ontario Museum and talk with the co-host of CBC's The Nature of Things, Anthony Morgan. And I believe an attendee in that crowd is an organizer of this and invited me along to this based on that. So one thing can lead to another. Next slide. There's a lot more to tell about these toads and about basically every species that's affected by climate change. And as still photographers, it's very difficult to come across funding. So if you know anybody, my contact information will be at the end. Please get a hold of me. Next slide. And very quickly, I'm running out of time, but I'll go over a positive story for you all. This is going back to the Bahamas, where there's this amazing pond that's, as you can see, is completely cut off from the ocean. It's been cut off since the last ice age. So for thousands of years, animals that are in this pond have been evolving in a different environment than the main ocean. Next slide. And it turns out that there are tons of seahorses in this pond. Next slide. It's actually got the highest density of seahorses of anywhere in the world. It's truly amazing. Next slide. And one day while snorkeling and trying to photograph the seahorses, I ran into an amazing woman, Dr. Heather Mason, who was tagging the seahorses, as you see in this photo, and doing genetic analysis on them. And we got talking after, and we're like, nobody knows about this place, and that's good for the seahorses, but threats are going to come down. So we need to get this place protected. So we teamed up with conservation organizations in the area and set out on a campaign. So how did we do it? Next slide. First, we started with the kids. We went around to the local schools. That's Dr. Heather Mason at the front of the class. You can see my images are on the whiteboard. And we talked about this place, and then they went back and told their parents about it. Next slide. We held community meetings, and my book, Bahamas Underwater, available now on my website. We presented that to the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, and there's a chapter on the pond in the book, and that got us talking about that. And this was a huge collaboration. I don't want to take too much credit, but next slide. I'm very happy to say that I was a part of a campaign that was successful. We turned this place into Seahorse National Park. It is completely protected. Next slide. So I just want to, put it out there that still photos still have a place. They can still be a useful tool for conservation. So please include us in your bylines, whether you're applying for grants or making a film or whatever it is. Next slide. Here's my contact information. Go ahead, take a picture of it with your phone or whatever. I'd love to hear from you. There's a lot of stories out there to tell, and that's what I want to do, is tell more of these stories. Okay. I'm sure you've heard enough of me rambling. We're going to move on to the founder of Climate Spring. I'm very pleased to be able to introduce the amazing Lucy Stone.
Thank you so much. What great company to be in. I founded Climate Spring, which is a global organization working on this climate storytelling question. A few years ago, having worked in the climate space for a long time and seen that we were really lacking some of the narratives and stories that would unlock progress on climate. Next slide. So we primarily we work with the creators and producers who are interested in telling these stories. We do that by supporting and funding that crucial early stage development of new ideas, mostly in the scripted space, but also we do support some programs on the unscripted space. My team is made up of experts that come from the industry, been commissioners and development execs and producers, and also by climate experts. And as well as supporting the development of new ideas, we also consult on existing projects and give advice and create connections. And I'm actually dialing in here from Brussels, where I'm at a gathering of the whole European network of similar organizations that are trying to mobilize and support each other around climate storytelling. So it's a growing movement. Next slide. So as I think we've heard, and as we know, we are in it now. We're fully in the climate crisis. And if we keep just communicating the problem without a solution, the worry with that is it locks people into this real sense of fight and flight response. If we can't see how we exit out of what is becoming quite a scary place, how we expected people to mobilize around the exit response. Next slide. And I think we've seen a lot of nostalgia in our popular culture because, as we know, particularly for younger audiences, the future is becoming a scary place. 70% of global youth are now deeply anxious, not just about the climate crisis, but about what their future might hold. So perhaps that's why we're now looking back. Next slide. We know that stories have a crucial role to play, and in terms of shaping the social norms and reflecting the changing values, but also in mobilizing real change in real life. For example, the post office drama mobilizing for political change in the UK over a scandal. But in a way, stories that are explicitly trying to focus on creating change around an issue, those kind of on-the-nose topics, are really the tip of the iceberg. And I just want to take a minute to talk about how we talk about climate storytelling, a climate spring. Sorry, if you could just go to the next slide. I don't know if it's stuck on my screen or if it's, if you can move to the next slide. Oh, there we are. Sorry, don't know what happened there. We lost for a minute. So as we've heard, we've had many decades now on kind of what I call ringing the alarm bell, really warning people about the scope and the extent and the scale of the problem. And what we're trying to support at Climate Spring is a new wave of climate stories that really look at, firstly, the justice story. Why are we where we are? Who's really responsible for the climate crisis? A lot of people are made to feel it's their fault as individuals. And whilst, of course, we want to empower people to feel that they are able to play a role in grappling with the climate crisis, it's also a systemic failure. It's a systemic reason why we are where we are. We need to tell that justice story. Secondly, the archetypal story, a journey story. We are in a story, we're in a journey now. And then the third is really thinking about this as a world building exercise. World building is one of the super skills of the screen industry. Imagining that future. What would it look like if we won? What would it look like if we transitioned towards a more regenerative future? And that's a space of excitement and dreaming. So I'm just going to give you a few examples of how we think about this. And at Climate Spring, we have now supported some 50 projects with major production companies from A24 to Sister Pictures and New Pictures. These are productions that are in development at various stages, some going into production now, with some of the leading screenwriters and talent in our industry. And we really noticed a huge growth of interest from talent, from writers and from commissioners who really see this as an exciting, expansive place. Thank you. Next slide. So I think we've kind of had the sort of superhero tropes, haven't we? And next slide. We're not going to be rescued by one individual, sadly, on the climate crisis. We're all going to need to come together. And so we need to see more justice stories that show teams coming together, standing up against the injustice that is the climate crisis. Next slide. Yeah, the journey story. We're in it now. We're not just in the impacts of climate change. We're in a huge transformation of society. Our homes, our food, our farms, our transport and our cities are all going to go through, and in fact, already are going through a huge period of change. Some of that change is going to feel scary and difficult. And some of that change is going to feel positive and exciting. And if we think about it as a transition, as a change, and a journey that we're all going to have to go on together, well, you want your friends on that journey. You want the powerful people. You want to overcome adversity, and you want to tell those stories of courage. Next slide. And thirdly, the world building. As I said, there's so few examples really looking to the future as a place of excitement, of what a regenerative world might look like. There are so few examples, so we've really started to support as many projects there that are really using that excitement about what the cities of the future might look like, what our homes might be. And there, you don't need to mention climate. You know, it is in the backdrop of the story, not just as the climate impacts, but all of the solutions, the values, the way we might live our lives can be the backdrop to the story, and the drama can come from good old-fashioned drama genres that people love to watch. Next slide. So the other story we forget to tell is, you know, that climate change is entirely a fixable problem, but also that all the things that we need to do for the climate crisis are all things we need to do for the health of our planet, but also for our own health. Secrets of the Blue Zone is one example there. Next slide, thank you. And here's an example of one of the projects we're supporting. This is a still of an animation that is envisaging a solar punk Mumbai. It's being developed by a brilliant filmmaker called Narija Raj and being developed at Loki and TKFX production companies. And this is just one of many projects that we're starting to see that are being developed, where writers are really starting to get excited about all the different ways we can imagine solving the climate crisis. Next slide, thank you. Oh, that was it. So the last thing I was going to say before we wrap up is we've supported the Climate Fiction Literary Prize here at Climate Spring, which was launched at Hay last year, and we'll be shortly announcing the winner. And that literary prize has really tried to open up IP and the exciting, you know, range of climate stories that are being published in novel form. And the long list really showed quite how expansive this space is. It ranged from Orbital, which won the Booker Prize this year. It ranged from, you know, true crime and love stories to an Indigenous colonial story with an Indigenous circular narrative. An incredible range of writers grappling with these crises, just as we're seeing with the screen industry. And we know at Climate Spring that we're just at the tip of the iceberg here, excuse the climate metaphor, but in terms of the interest. We've also seen the Green Rider talent campaign mobilize acting talent to really harness not just the role that they can play as actors attaching to projects, but really the role they can play with their influence, with their cultural power as actors and how they talk about these issues. So we're excited to see this movement grow, and we're pleased to be part of this discussion and part of a growing global interest. Our team is in LA, in London, and in Paris, and we're always interested to hear from producers, from screenwriters, and development execs for any new ideas that they might be developing that they might want to talk about. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to pass over to the next speaker, who is the wonderful Alison Begelman, who is the CEO and founder of Yeah Impact, someone who we love collaborating with. And I'm going to pass over to Alison for the next talk. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. So good to see you all. My name is Alison, and I am a founder, yes, of Yeah Impact, but also, and more specific to this conversation, of the Hollywood Climate Summit, which is an annual conference and year-round organization that creates cross-sector media spaces for thousands of media and entertainment professionals to take action on climate. I will just flag up front that our next conference is June 2nd to 4th at an partnership with the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. And we're really excited to invite a global community in. We have a virtual live stream, but it'll also be taking place in Los Angeles. So now my talk is a bit about no slides, just me. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the interdependence of storytelling and community building. So when I tell people that my background is in community organizing and entertainment, they're usually confused. Since when do those two things actually go together? Well, the TLDR is that I've been working and organizing since college and kept doing it as I saw the need for solidarity across marginalized groups while working my way up in the entertainment industry. And that turned into a movement of entertainment professionals who cared about social justice issues and impact, and then into the Hollywood Climate Summit, an annual conference and an organization that's mobilizing professionals specifically around climate. Throughout this journey, I've discovered that storytelling and community building are interdependent. There's a relationship between the storytellers and communities they portray, and just as important, the communities that we build among ourselves as creatives and media makers. So over the next few minutes, I'll use climate as a case study to show why the combination of storytelling and community building can actually shift the narratives that shape our culture. So here's the thing, many media and entertainment professionals do this work because they want to make an impact. I'm sure many people that are listening today feel that way. Whether that's on an individual or systemic level, they want to use their large platforms to reach people worldwide and to build those. And what they may not get yet is that to influence these stories, to fight for their authentic inclusion, that takes education and it takes strong alliances. I'll do a quick segue. Educational psychologists have long known that learning in groups improves social connections. It's one of the reasons why schools do collaborative learning. People bond through shared discovery and problem solving. And it turns out the same goes for professional communities. In developing the Hollywood Climate Summit, we discovered that there's a massive gap in climate understanding among entertainment professionals of all ages and backgrounds. And so when professionals started to attend our programming, something deeper began to brew. They developed a shared language, common reference points, and opportunities for future collaborations were beginning to emerge. They could locate industry allies in the fight for entertainment, environmental storytelling. And I'll give a quick example. My friend, who is an executive at just TV development, he has been going to our events for the past 6 years, and he recently told me that he goes for the number one reason he goes is because he wants to find those allies that he can, work the system with, and know that they have the same mission as him. They want to really integrate climate and other issues into the projects that they are developing. And it's a very difficult landscape to navigate. So having other people who are close by, really important. So these impact and community building experiences create natural entry points for relationships that might not otherwise form. You have a writer who can maybe connect with a scientist, or a producer with a nonprofit leader, an executive with maybe an emerging creator. And all of this is done not because, we're networking and we're trying to, get something from another person to build our career, and maybe there's subtext with that. Maybe that is, in the back of people's minds, but ultimately it's about a shared goal. And around this specifically was climate, but a shared goal of impact, right? And these connections, ones that sort of go beyond the traditional, I want this from you, you want this from me, they lead to crossing traditional industry hierarchies, and they help break silos. So ultimately, we shouldn't need to choose between professional development and community building. If they're done well, they'll just reinforce each other. Creating networking spaces that are educational and engaging can increase climate literacy and foster community that's excited to understand the breadth of environmental issues. Even over the past few years of activating and community building, I mean, we just saw what, Lucy's presentation from Climate Spring, we're seeing some storylines and messaging evolve. We're seeing a need for this. And creators specifically are gaining confidence to move beyond the standard tropes and explore new narrative territory where there's the issue baked into the entertainment, right? It's entertainment forward with the issue as part of it. Content that incorporates climate as one element of a complex world rather than a single focus. Characters who experience these impacts as part of their everyday lives instead of just in crisis or extreme weather moments. Now, this matters because no single professional can transform an industry. It takes shift in culture to normalize new approaches and create permission for innovation. For example, when your friends and colleagues are doing something, you're more likely to want to join. There's a FOMO effect with that, right? Now, sort of the last piece of this is there's transformative work that's also happened at the intersection of storytellers and frontline communities. This isn't just about research, it's creating meaningful relationships and that ultimately influence both the content and the creative process, whether that's storytellers connecting with these communities directly, bringing them in as consultants or producers to share their stories, and importantly, crediting them, or providing opportunities for frontline storytellers to become creative professionals themselves, giving them agency and supporting with expertise to get them to that level. And I'll note that, again, these bridges need to be built with intention and deep care. It's not about extracting stories or using communities as props. It's about creating dialogue where both storytellers and community members contribute their expertise to the narrative process. The potential of these cross-community relationships is significant. Stories become more grounded in lived experience, community needs and solutions can be highlighted more authentically. And most importantly, the storytelling process itself can be more inclusive, bringing new voices into an industry that has historically excluded many perspectives. So these relationships challenge the traditional model where Hollywood tells stories about communities without their participation. Instead, they create possibilities for collaborative storytelling that serves both creative and community goals. So where do we go from here? As I'm imagining there are folks here again that do this work, and my advice is to seek out impact education and community building within your sector. And if there isn't already sort of an organized effort, do it yourself or start to enlist allies on this webinar who want to support you in that. Because ultimately, when we build informed communities of creatives and media professionals, we generate stories that lead to stronger, more resilient communities in the world. And with that, thank you for having me. And I want to pass it over to Jackie Lee, who's the head of CBC's Creator Network. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Allison. Yeah, our focus at Creator Network is on Gen Z and millennial audiences and creators. These are some of the groups who will be the most impacted by the climate crisis, as we've heard, and the ones who are consuming and creating short-form digital video on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. For Sprouting Seeds of Change, we worked with 10 digital video creators to produce a short vertical video each related to climate change. I'm thrilled to be introducing Karishma Porwal. She's a climate storyteller and consultant and was one of our 10 Sprouting Seeds of Change creators. She has a master's in sustainability leadership and was just in Berlin last month presenting at the Energy Transition Dialogue on the topic of how to discuss climate change in a way that brings hope and light to a potentially daunting conversation. Here's Karishma's Fast Furniture piece published on CBC for Sprouting Seeds of Change. Natasha, if you could play the video, please.
Your cheap furniture is costing you more than you think. So you might have heard of fast fashion, but have you heard of its ugly stepsister, fast furniture? For example, here's my desk. It's pretty cheap and you can see that it's made of laminate, meaning it easily cracks and rattles. It won't be long before it breaks. In fact, we in North America throw away 9 million tons of furniture every year. On the other hand, if you get something made of a more durable material like this dining table that was passed down to me from my family made of hardwood, it's going to last decades. However, if you don't have the money to shell out for good quality material, you can always pick something up at the thrift store or online marketplaces. That way you're saving something that was headed for landfill anyway, giving it a second life. And if you're worried about thrifted pieces not matching your style, you can always reupholster, refinish, and get crafty. Take this shelf for example. If I were to buy a new plastic version of this, it probably wouldn't support the weight of my plants, but this works like a charm. Hopefully this helps you navigate the world of furniture in a way that's kinder to the planet and to your wallet.
Thank you. And with that, I will throw it to Krishna.
Hello, everyone. My name is Karishma. I am the girl from the video. Jackie, thank you for the introduction. I was asked to talk briefly today about the potential of vertical video and short form video content. So as Jackie mentioned, I've been creating short form video content for the last 5 years. And I think that with vertical video, there's so much room for creativity. I've personally created skits, fairy tales, vlogs, get ready with me's, what I do in a day videos, and connected it all back to climate. Laura said earlier in this call, you could give her any topic and she could connect it to climate. And I think that, that resonated with me too. And a lot of climate creators are using other forms and other sort of creative vertical videos on social media as well. They're being news anchors. They're going out and doing interviews on the street. And I think that short form nature of these videos, it allows us to be more casual and at the same time allows us to stick to the point a little bit more. What I've learned and some interesting insights when it comes to vertical video in general is, and I think this can apply across different social media platforms that allow for vertical video, having a really strong hook. I think this matters more so than any other media in my experience because people are scrolling so fast and often not doing so in a way where they're mindfully consuming the content that they're seeing. Having a face speaking to the camera as an opener is always super effective in terms of keeping people interested. I found that on social media, while I love, showing clips of places I've been and things that I'm doing, the content that people seem to listen to and resonate with most is the one where they see another fellow human being on the other side of the camera. And so that's what I try to do. Speaking faster and with more animation sort of in my voice and facial expressions. I've always told people that I talk to about vertical video, short form video, to sort of imagine yourself as a cartoon character when you're speaking, because you'd never ever speak to anybody in real life the way that you do to a camera when you're making a vertical video. It would seem crazy, but that is what seems to resonate with folks online. Again, to stand out from all the noise, to stand out from all of the content that exists when someone is doom scrolling. So those are a few things that I found work for me. But then specifically speaking to Seeds of Change, what an incredible opportunity. I learned so much more as a creator about how to keep a video moving, fast, how to pick up the pace and keep people interested. I thought I had already mastered that, but the Seeds of Change team were really great at helping me sort of trim the fat around where I didn't need to be rambling on about certain things or if I was being repetitive. And I also learned how to layer more visuals, voiceovers, statistics, stickers, photos to make a more dynamic video. So again, vertical video being a really, really competitive space where you're just like a thumb swipe away from being scrolled. How to keep a viewer's attention really hooked using different sorts of layers, different media within the media. And then I think the program as a whole helped me as a creator get a little bit more of a directorial edge because I had a whole team to bounce ideas off of, which as an individual creator, I don't normally have. I just have myself and my family sometimes, but it was really cool to have people that are trained in video creation and digital media to help me create something that's a little bit more engaging. So all sort of the constructive criticisms and the critiques on details that I wouldn't normally even think of, like now it's something I think about when I'm making content every day, thinking about, that being too repetitive, showing a variety of visuals, the importance of a good hook, all of that stuff. And I think just to finish off, because I know I had around 4 to 5 minutes to speak here, just some general thoughts about online creators. I think everyone is online and we all have somewhat of a love-hate relationship with social media. But at the end of the day, it really does democratize information and democratize access to news around the world. And it's especially useful for reaching Gen Z. The digital generation, I think for this generation, for this young generation, community exists online just as much as it does offline. And I think that's, me included. I'm in that group of people that's consuming news and media online often more than I am reading. And I think that for that reason, I personally can't understate the importance of really cracking the code when it comes to vertical video. And I know I for sure am still learning, but yeah, what an evolving space. And I know that the space will continue to evolve as, you know, new apps come out, new algorithms get updated. As creators, we always have to stay on top of what's working and what's not, and always auditing our vertical videos and making sure that we don't get stuck in a rut. And I think that with an ever-changing algorithm and an ever-changing audience, that can be a risk. So overall, this was such a great experience working with Seeds of Change and getting to learn and grow as a creator myself. So that's me. I'm going to pass it on to Shalon Jodri, ecologist and storyteller.
Hi, thanks. I am I'm a Mi'kmaq storyteller. So I'm speaking from a little bit of a cultural perspective as well. Um, we're taught that, kind of like when Lucy was speaking before, we're taught to also have that positive dream in order to know where to head. And that isn't just a good idea, you know, that it's actually how we need to move from one generation to the next. How do you dream up the next generations? How can you imagine, you know, what they will need? How do you imagine the path through all of this change? So sometimes I find it important to remind people uh, that for Indigenous people around the world, that actually so much has changed in the landscape and in our communities, that we've actually been going through such difficult change for so many generations. So although for some people that this climate crisis and the ecological destruction around us feels new, it's actually not new to many, many people. And so how do we take care of ourselves, and how do we dream up, you know, the way forward? And you know, there's different parts of the self. So as storytellers, you know, it's not just about how do we use our brain to figure out the story that needs to be told, but how in the rest of ourselves, our body, our heart, um, you know, how can we connect and kind of and not try to not try to focus too much on the brain. So something that I do is actually go to the source of my inspiration, which is the land, nature. So to the shore, to the forest, or sitting with a fire. And I actually let my brain just drift, so that other things are coming in. Like, what am I feeling? What other inspiration is there? And so sometimes it's that I can come up with, I can feel, I can see, I can imagine a story that needs to be told as the way forward that I hope for. Because as we've already heard, you know, and then they teach you in defensive driving not to look too much at the ditch, to look to where you want to go. And so other people have told me over my lifetime, you know, but can you share with us ideas and stories that show us the way? Because that's such a powerful tool. And so those are some of the things that I do, is that I spend time on the land, is that I don't give my brain too much credit, that I let all of that other inspiration in. And sometimes I use those moments to dream up the future, to dream up the next generation and the next generation, not in a negative doomsday way, but as, well, what will they need that will help them? And what might that look like in a world that I am hoping for and dreaming for? And so it's almost like when you navigate the actual forest and landscape, that if you know this distance that you're trying to head towards, you know, that you'll look for a landmark off in the distance. But then you still need to be able to look down of where you're stepping, you know, and knowing uh, that although you have that dream, you know, ahead, that also you need to figure out what then are these steps that are making it to that direction. And some of our most simple stories, you know, are helping to guide each other. Well, where's the direction that we want to head? And and spending time in nature as the source of our inspiration, maybe sometimes in this chaotic world, it might feel like something that is simply leisure, but it's doing a few things for us. One is that it's taking care of us. That time in nature is medicine for us. It's helping to ground us. And also that inspiration, you know, is coming from all around us. And so sometimes if you're spending some time with nature for that inspiration so that you can see that story that needs to be told, and it may or may not be your own vision, it might be the story of how you're helping to bring other people's visions in and tell that story, but that it's also the way that yeah, that we can also take care of ourselves as a very radical as a very radical step. And then by the end of the day, if you still have questions, and when I still have questions, then the other thing that I do is I just have it all around me in my mind as I'm going to sleep. And I literally let those dreams come into fruition in the back of my mind so that, you know, the next day that I can get up, you know, and look at the day ahead. And sometimes those ideas just bubble out. And so we have to remember to take care of ourselves, and that the answers sometimes are in the very landscapes, those ecosystems around us, and to allow that inspiration in. And so those are, in short form, what I wanted to share with you today. So next, I would like to invite Julie Corris, the head of French Specialty Networks.
Thank you, Shalane. I can really relate to what you said, so thank you for that. Hi, everyone. I'm here to tell you how we embarked on a sustainability journey since joining Canadian Broadcasters for Sustainability and also Rolling Green in Quebec. Our chorus French team has commissioned 2 dramas since that date. Can we put the slides up, please, Natasha? Yeah, and we took 2 different approaches to do so. If you can move on to the next slide. We've been experimenting a little bit, and the first one was the season 3 for our show Bête Noire, which just launched on Série Plus on April 2nd. For the third franchise of this show, we decided to go all the way to put green production best practices in motion. The Encore Television team has done everything they could behind the camera to save on CO2 emissions. They used thrifted sets and decors. They reduced their use of plastic, shot with natural light, a lot of it outdoors, and lots of other measures were put into place. So this is our first Albert verified drama, and it also got the performance accreditation from Rolling Green. If we can move on to the next slide, please. Then we took this to a completely different level with our next production, Anticosti. We started right from the script writing to weave in a green storyline as best as we could. This shoot required a lot of logistics as we wanted to highlight the beauty of the Anticosti Island while making compromises to save on CO2 emissions. So the production company Sphere Media organized to shoot most of the scenes off island last year, and a minimal amount of actors, crew, and equipment will be traveling to Anticosti in May to do the final 8 days of the shoot. This whodunit drama unfolds against a backdrop inspired by real environmental protests that occurred on the island in 2017, and As an incredible coincidence, just a year after we began scripting the show, and days after it was greenlit, Anticosti Island was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So from now on, it is protected. The narrative also incorporates an Indigenous storyline, shedding light on the discrimination faced by some of the local communities that live there. I could go on, but as we have to wrap up quickly, I'm gonna say thank you for having me, and I would like to introduce our next speaker, Kirsten Hurd, Commissioning Editor at TVO.
Thank you very much, Julie. My name is Kirsten Hurd, and I'm in charge of all of the kids programming here at TVO, which is the public broadcaster here in Ontario. I did bring a video with some clips, so Natasha, if you don't mind rolling that, and then I'll chat afterwards.
Why is this happening? Did I leave the lid off the craft box again?
No, O'Shea. The source seems to be Mount Landville. Here.
So much garbage! And glitter!
And the glitter's getting caught on the wind and blotting out the sun!
Come back, son!
Team, we need to stop this problem before it starts. It's time
to take the future back!
I think that using a car to get to school isn't the best idea because it does produce a lot of carbon and pollutes. A lot of people in my school bring lunches that are wrapped in plastic. It would be an amazing idea to reduce the school lunch waste. There's a ton of waste every single day. This year, I want my school routine to be zero waste and low carbon. I'd love some help.
Thank you. So as you can see, those are two of our series that are talking to kids about climate change. So the first one was an animated series called Galapagos X from Big Bad Boo Studios in Vancouver, which features a group of kids from the future who travel back in time to help solve climate-related issues. And the second one is from a live-action unscripted series that we do called Green Squad, which is produced by Apartment 11 in Montreal, that gives kids real-life practical ways that they can help the environment and reduce their carbon footprint. I think for us, the key to talking to kids about climate change is to not overwhelm them with negativity and present issues in a clear and concise way. And it's also important that they get practical ideas and skills that they can put to use in their everyday lives. The issues around climate change can often feel daunting and insurmountable, and a key element we want our audience to come away from our programming is with hope for the future that they are inheriting. And it's really nice to hear a lot of people here today talk about looking for hope amidst all of the sort of negativity. And that's what we're doing at TVO Kids. And with that, I will pass it over to Michelle McCree at CBC.
Thanks, Kirsten, and thanks to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to talk about a powerful CBC documentary. It's called Yinta, which means land in the Wet'suwet'en language. This film isn't just about protecting the forests or the rivers, but of course it is about that. It's also about the deep living connection between people and the land we call home. Yinta follows the Wet'suwet'en Nation as they stand up to protect their unceded territory in British Columbia from pipeline development. What makes this story so compelling is that it's not just about resistance. It's about resilience, it's about community, and it's about culture. Yinta shows us that environmental protection really looks different when it's rooted in identity, history, and a deep love and respect for the land. What I find so moving about it is how it shifts the narrative from saving nature to understanding that the land is family. And when each one of us realizes that, it changes how we show up for it. Now, I want to share a short clip with you. As you watch, notice not just the beauty of the landscape, but the strength and spirit of the people who are fighting to protect it.
This is the proposed corridor for multiple pipeline projects.
You're crossing our territory on two ends of your pipeline. Who gave you permission?
pipelines break of the pipelines would destroy water and everything in it.
They got to come through us first.
What started as a dispute over a natural gas pipeline has erupted into protests.
In solidarity with Wet'suwet'en land defenders.
This is an immediate evacuation order for all Coastal GasLink employees.
You guys are gonna block the road.
Probably thinking I'm getting too old for this shit.
Powerful, right? That's the kind of storytelling we strive for at CBC Docs, storytelling that reminds us that we all have a role to play. And maybe, just maybe, if we listen closely to voices like the ones in Yinta, we'll start to remember what it means to really protect the places we love. Now I'm happy to pass the mic to Sam Linton from Blue Ant.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Michelle, so much. That looks like a really important documentary. I'm Sam Linton from Blue Ant Media. I oversee commissioning for all of our originals across our channels at Blue Ant. And I guess I really wanted to give you some examples of all the different ways that we're embracing storytelling, climate change and sustainability storytelling across so many genres. We have channels like Cottage Life, BBC Earth, Smithsonian, and we're able to embrace in really organic ways everything from history and archaeology to series about wildlife and even home renovation stuff. So I'm just going to share a few examples with you. I know we're trying to keep to time and I don't have any videos. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about them. The first one I wanted to mention is a show called Orangutan Jungle School. This is a series that's shot in Borneo and it's for our Love Nature brand. And it really focuses on the good work that they do there for all the orphaned orangutans. And the reason they're orphaned is because of the deforestation in Borneo. So you couldn't ask for a more organic way to get at climate change than that. Here at home, we have kind of our localized version, a series that we shoot in Halifax in the Nova Scotia area called Hope for Wildlife. Features a woman who runs a wildlife rehab center. And this past season, when the wildfires ravaged the province of Nova Scotia, we had many, many stories of animals that were orphaned and that came in. We had a little sisters, deer fawn sisters that were aptly named Ember and Ash because they were singed when they arrived at the center. So there again, you have in real time seeing the devastation that climate change has on our natural world. Archaeology, another weird way that you wouldn't think necessarily would be an easy way to get at some of these stories, but there it is. We have a series called Mysteries from Above that uses the simple, lovely, clean concept of drone technology as a way to open up and tell stories, new stories of history and archaeology, how the view from above kind of unlocks the secrets. And we see things like, new ruins being revealed in Turkey because the ocean waters are receding because of climate change. So that was really interesting to see. And the last one I want to mention is a series that we did out of British Columbia called Todd Talbot Builds the Passive House Project. And this was with Todd Talbot from the Love It or List It fame. And we really set out to do a renovation series with Todd, watching the journey of him and his family building their dream house in the Okanagan. And it was going to be a traditional lifestyle series, much like he'd done in the past, with a great reveal at the end. But sure enough, the wildfires hit the Okanagan area. And after 2 years of building his dream house, literally his house went up in smoke. His house, his dreams, everything. So we as a broadcaster and as a creative partner with the producer had to decide together how to handle that. And we chose, I'm very proud to say we chose to dig into what was real in that story and shift away from the traditional lifestyle format and embrace more of a documentary approach to what happens when your home renovation is confronted with some of the realities of climate change. So those are a few examples how we have so many different genres. It's not just stuff that's on the nose, but it can come into storytelling in so many different ways. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you. And I'm going to pass it over to Renee Paradis, executive producer at TFO Kids.
Hello, everybody. Hi, I'm Renee from TFO, and
It's for those who don't know, it's Ontario's French public broadcaster, so similar to TVO, but French. Same idea though. I'm going to present to you a little clip of our series. It's going to be subtitled. It's called Effet domino in French, Domino Effect in English.
1, 2, 3. Voici 3 choses que tu peux faire à la maison pour ne pas gaspiller l'eau. 1. Ferme l'eau du robinet quand tu te brosses les dents. 2. Ce n'est pas bon d'arroser le gazon. 3. Prends une douche de 5 minutes au lieu de 10 minutes. 5 minutes. C'est simple comme 1, 2, 3.
Bravo, Daouda. Ça, ce sont de bonnes idées. Hey, ça me fait penser, je connais une pro qui en a aussi de bonnes idées.
So that was just a short clip from the show Effet Domino. So Effet Domino, 13 episodes, each episode features a kid like Daouda who talk about the domino effect, so the positive effect that they're having on their friends and community. In Daouda's case, when he was 8 years old, he moved to Pembroke from Mali, and him and his family, the biggest shock they had where they came from a country where during the dry season they'd have to travel miles just to get drinking water. Here were people in Pembroke washing their driveways with tap water. So it was a huge shock to him to see how wasteful we are in Canada, not just with water, but with other things. And so what this series does is that we don't hide the facts about how 90% of things that we think that we're recycling are actually ending up in the dumpster. We're not hiding any of the scary facts, but we give it hope in featuring people, kids like Daouda, who are making a difference in their communities. Not only people like Daouda, but we're featuring adults who have jobs that are innovative and who are trying to introduce something greener. For example, there's a professor named Dr. Marc Dubé at the University of Ottawa who's coming up with like a glue that can go on tape so that when you tape something and it's a piece of paper that isn't colored, you can actually throw it in the recycling bin. Or even those stickers that are on fruits and vegetables that they say are edible, and that might be true, but the glue is not toxic, but it's not biodegradable. So they're working on this new kind of glue that can be biodegradable. So the series is meant to really not hide any of the facts about what's happening to our environment, but give it hope and show that people do care. And we actually just aired it, that particular episode in a few schools for Earth Day this week. And we got really positive feedback that that was in fact the message that people were getting. So happy to say that we're going into a season 2, and I know time is limited. So thank you for listening to me, for your time. And we are going into a 5-minute break, but when we come back, Justin Barnes from Rolling Green will be speaking. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is Justin Barnes. I am the lead of the Real Green team over at the BC Film Commission at Creative BC in Vancouver. Real Green is a program that provides the BC film industry with practical tools, resources, and training to reduce our environmental impact and promote sustainable production. We do this by reducing waste and costs. We focus on cutting production waste and optimizing resource use, create efficiencies, lower expenses, and reduce our environmental footprint. We build industry connections by bringing together professionals, organizations, and film technicians to share our knowledge and collaborate in actionable solutions for our responsible filmmaking. And finally, we provide tools for action through training, resources, and equip productions with practical methods to reduce our emissions, streamline our operations, and meet our environmental goals. Natasha, can we begin our slide presentation, please? We can go ahead and move to the next slide, please. So Real Green is comprised of 26 industry partners in British Columbia and Los Angeles, including ACFC, Screen BC, the Directors Guild of Canada, and Sony, Netflix, Amazon. We've trained 2,000 crew through our training program modules with 40 national partners and 26 direct investors in the province. Next slide. And again, as I said, we create that by tools, training, and what we call community building. So our training opportunities, our special events, our battery workshops, training our crew. And next slide, please. This presentation is focused explicitly on our production training, our sustainable production, and our carbon calculator training. So in brief, since 2018, when we began our SPT training, we've trained over 2,000 crew, which have had a direct investment in the British Columbia film sector, driving over $5.6 billion year over year, which has created 70,000 direct jobs and 120,000 indirect jobs through service providers, vendors, and contractors. We offer this training on a monthly basis. It's free for anyone to join. At the end of the slide, you'll see a registration link that you can follow the QR code and click to join, and the dates will be upcoming at the end of this presentation. So next slide, please. The second module we provide for free is our carbon calculator training, which is designed as a more in-depth training module for practitioners, generally sustainability advisors who are working on film sets, who are directly overseeing the crew and reporting back to their parent studios through a carbon calculator such as Albert, the Peach, Pear, Plum. And to date, since we began that training in 2022, we've had over 160 crew trained in that very technical outcome or technical module. So next slide. And here are upcoming dates for our next training opportunities for SPT and our carbon calculators. Monday, May the 5th at 11:30 to 1:30 and Pacific Standard Time, and Monday, May the 26th from 12:30 to 2 in Pacific Standard Time. And next slide, please. And feel free to register here. You can scan the QR code. It will take you directly to the Eventbrite app to log in and register. And we'd love to see us get up to 4,000 or even more. I'll leave that up for a moment, giving a chance for folks to scan it if they want. And then the next slide, please. And if you have any questions about our training or any of our tools, feel free to look at our website at realgreen.ca. There's a tools and trainings tab, as well as further resources that we provide as a hub for the sustainability and film sector in BC. And with that, I have the great pleasure of introducing Jessica Jennings, my counterpart over at Ontario Green Screen. Thank you so much, and take it away.
Thank you so much, Justin. Actually, if you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you so much. So, yes, my name is Jessica Jennings. I'm a production consultant for environmental services at Ontario Creates. And within that, I'm with the Ontario Film Commission and am running the Ontario Green Screen program. Next slide, please. So, like Real Green, we're also we have an advisory committee, a group of private and public stakeholders who help us guide the Ontario industry through sustainability efforts. Next slide, please. So what does Ontario Green Screen do? Just quickly, our website, we have a sustainability toolkit with resources for productions to use on their productions, as well as green resources and vendors and community building. I'll speak a little bit more about that later, but really this presentation is mostly focused on training. So next slide, please. So first, we actually just recently, April 10th, just relaunched our Sustainable Film Production Fundamentals course. And it's now offered as both a self-directed course online at your own pace, as well as facilitated. So that's exciting. And we put a lot of work into that. So I'm happy that it's out there now. So also, we have a free carbon calculation fundamentals course, also similar to the offerings Real Green has. And since our inception, we've trained over 1,000 industry professionals and counting. Next slide, please. So first, for the facilitated course, just both courses cover the same topics as you see on the screen here. And the facilitated course runs about an hour and 45 minutes. And the course has been updated to, reflect regionally specific Ontario-based vendors and resources as much as we can offer. And we'll continually, with it being facilitated, we can include more and more updates as the industry and sustainability side of things progresses. Next slide, please. So for the self-directed, you would go onto the Talent LMS webpage. You can go through our website. We have a link to it, and you register. And with both the course offerings, you'll get a certificate of completion and some sustainability resources upon completion. The self-directed course takes a little bit less time, and you can take it anytime at your own pace, ideally integrated into prep of your productions. Next slide, please. So as well, we have the Carbon Calculation Fundamentals course. This is about an hour in length. We cover the two main carbon calculators, Albert and so the pair, and as well. So we've got some dates coming up, and I'll move to the next slide and share those with you. So our SFPF course, the next date is actually this Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and our next Carbon Calculation Fundamentals course is Thursday, May 1st, 7 p.m. So again, you can go to our website under the training page, and all of the dates are there. Click the date you want, and you'll be taken to a registration link. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to do a quick little plug because we, as well at Ontario Green Screen, we also do clean energy workshops as well. We try to engage and have sustainability knowledge sharing and workshops at our community meetings that we hold quarterly. So our spring community meeting is actually tomorrow evening, which you're all invited to. It's free, 7 p.m. And we're in partnership with Story Money Impact and presenting an environmental film, The Interceptors. And then we have a panel on discussion of food waste in the film industry. So that's a free event. Would love to have you there so we can advance those discussions. And next slide, please. Actually, that's it. Thank you so much. And I'm throwing now to, who's on the docket? Ben Alsworth, Executive Producer, CBC Music. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica. So many amazing presentations today. I now need to be carpeted by tadpoles, and I didn't know that you could eat the fruit stickers. Kim Fry and I want to chat about the environmental impact of live music. We often hear about artists and their touring and the impact that it has on the environment, but there's actually a bigger thing. And that bigger thing is what we wanted to tackle as part of our Juno's live music concert series. And so here's a short video outlining our strategy and process. And then following that, Kim Fry is going to talk about how we are trying to grow that beyond our concert series. Roll the tape, please.
Hey everybody, I'm excited to share details about the environmental initiative we launched for Road to the Junos. For those of you who aren't familiar, the Road to the Junos is a concert series that CBC Music puts on in the Junos host city. This year it took place over 5 nights at the Pearl in Vancouver, featuring 11 acts. Our initial goals for the Road to the Junos were threefold: to build excitement in the host city for the Juno Awards, to create Junos content for our platforms, and to raise money through ticket sales for Music Counts. But we've since added another: reduce our carbon footprint. Our approach stemmed from a conversation with Kim Fry at Music Declares Emergency. She shared a surprising statistic. Audience travel accounts for up to 85% of live music's greenhouse gas emissions, often dwarfing the impact of artist travel. As this was our third Road to the Junos, we believed we could impact that statistic as we understood our series and our audience. Step 1 was reaching out to Karis and Music Declares Emergency. Both enthusiastically agreed to support our initiative. Our strategy was simple: shift the lift to the audience. We believed that if the audience knew the same information that we did, many would change their habits. But we also knew that incentives work, so we incentivized eco-friendly behavior by offering a reward: tickets to events that were happening during Junos Week 2 months later. We emailed our ticket holders twice, once as a group before the concert series and again on the day of each individual show, detailing the initiative and incentive. The Road to the Junos is held in a relatively small venue, so while our impact isn't on the scale of convincing a large percentage of Taylor Swift fans to change their transportation habits, we did see success in shifting behaviors. We sold 909 tickets to Road to the Junos, and 32% of attendees participated in our contest run on-site by Music Declares Emergency. That is an 18% increase from the 2024 Road to the Junos initiative held in Halifax. Our data isn't perfect as our process isn't perfect. We don't believe we captured everyone who took an alternative means of transportation. Our busiest nights had the lowest participation rates, which suggests there were other obstacles. However, we believe that 32% represents a real impact on our series and the environment, as well as beyond. Concertgoers now know that they can have an impact on live music carbon emissions. They will hopefully reconsider their methods for every show following ours. On top of that, we now felt we knew enough to scale it up and pilot the same concept for the Junos themselves. And for more on that, I'm going to pass it on over to Kim Fry.
Thank you. Thanks so much for that video, Ben. And my presentation is not going to be as visual as what Ben put together. And I want to thank Ben for really, I think, championing the partnership and representing the Climate and Environment Committee at CBC so well, and trying to work with our organization to see what we can do to impact the music sector. So just a little bit about me and my organization, and then I'll pick up on what Ben talked about. My name is Kim, and I coordinate a small nonprofit in Canada, Music Declares Emergency, but we are part of a global network. So the organization was founded in 2019 in the United Kingdom, and we're up to, I think, 17 chapters around the world, with about 7,000 musicians who have signed on to the declaration. we're one of the bigger chapters in Canada. And we got to partner last year in Halifax for Road to the Junos and pilot something that we were able to build upon in Vancouver. And so in a very short period of time, Ben was able to bring us on board and get Karis on board to scale this up even more so for the Junos broadcast. So communication we had less control over. So we weren't able to send 2 emails. We were only able to send 1. But every single ticket holder for the broadcast did get in the email that had all the what you need to know, a section on climate and on the importance of audience travel and that it is the biggest source of emissions. So that information, even if people didn't participate in our program, they were getting that information along with different ways that they could get to the Rogers Arena. So we only had about 200 people participate in the pilot out of about 10,000 attendees. So not a huge amount, but that was partly just the sort of crush of volume of people and not having enough volunteers. So we really did see it as a pilot, and we've done a debrief, and we have lots of ideas for how we can improve this in 2026. But the piece about incentives is so important. Communication and incentives are really, I think, how we address the overarching issue of audience travel and how we change habits. So reminding people, and we are able to get the feedback that a pretty big percentage of people who did fill out the survey, and so if they did come using a sustainable mode of transportation, bicycle, they walked, or they took public transit, they were able to enter a contest. And so we administered the contest, and the big prize, the big draw was an electric scooter. And in the conversations as people were filling out the survey they were entering, we, had conversations and were able to find out that many were influenced by the call out and by the incentive to take a different mode of transportation than what they might have otherwise taken. And so from that, we're able to draw on that data to look towards the Junos in 2026, which will be in Hamilton, Ontario, and scale this up again. So there are many ways that we can go about greening the Junos and making them more sustainable. And we've done work with a sustainable fashion guide. We've influenced food choices for the gala. We've been able to do a lot of public outreach. Last year in Halifax, we had a climate stage. But the overarching, the biggest source of emissions really is audience travel. And so that is the thing that we want to tackle moving forward. And we're really excited that we've been invited to share this at Seeds of Change, and we're excited to work with CBC Music and Karis next year and to take this pilot and not only bring it to the Junos, but influence how audience travel happens within the music sector. And with that, I am going to pass it over to Maureen Cockman. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim. And hi everyone. So I'm Maureen Cockman, and I work for the Quebec Film and Television Council as a project manager, and I work more specifically on the Rolling Green program. So please, Natasha, if you could share my slides, that would be great. Perfect. Thank you so much. So the Rolling Green program, which is the Quebec Sustainability Program, and you may know us as On tourne vers in French. So you can move to the next one. Thank you. So very briefly, I want to tell you a little bit about the program. So it was created in 2021 as a concert effort by the Quebec Film and Television Council, the Quebec Council of Eco-Responsible Events, and Québecor. So driven by the need to accelerate the ecological transition of our industry, the program provides tools, resources, trainings for film shoots and visual effects and animation studios. So to do so, we collaborate with a lot of stakeholders, such as unions, associations, broadcasters, producer, university also. in order to facilitate the adoption of eco-friendly measures and more globally reduce the ecological footprint of our industry. You can move to the next slide. Thank you. So we have developed an accreditation system composed of 3 levels. But since we don't have much time, I will give you a brief overview. So there are 3 levels: commitment, performance, and excellence. So basically, there is an entry level to get started, an intermediate level, and an advanced one. So you can find more details about how it works on our website. Everything is available in French as well as in English. And for now, at the moment, over 160 productions have been accredited or are currently in the process of being accredited. So it's very encouraging and very inspiring. You can move to the next slide. Thank you. So regarding the tools and resources available, here are a few that I can quickly present. So first, there is a guide to sustainable audiovisual productions, with some eco-friendly practices across all departments. We have also a costume management guide, an eco-responsible supplier sourcebook. So if you're planning to shoot in Quebec and you're looking for suppliers with a more ethical policy, this might be very helpful. We have also a best practices guide for animation and VFX studios. And then finally, a training program with more than 20 hours and personalized coaching to help you develop a green action plan. So unfortunately, this one is only available in French at the moment, but we are opening some subscriptions soon. So if you're interested, stay tuned. And you can move to the next slide. Thanks. So now let's see what's new with the program. So we launched in January new resources dedicated to documentaries and nature shoots. So first, there is a best practices guide. So you can so it's divided into 2 sections, starting with one focused on the specificities of documentary filmmaking. So you can find some concrete actions and alternative for each department, but also what focus on, what you should prioritize with if you work in a small team, etc. You have also some case studies, some resources, and additional readings. And the second section is concerning shooting in natural sites or wilderness. So as you may know, wild and natural environments are stressed by repeated human activity, such as sporting events, festivals, film shoots, and so on. So unfortunately, many sites can become overused and damaged as a result of their appeal. So the point of the second part is to help minimize the impact of human activities on flora and fauna during filming. So to do so, we expose some of the risks and to fauna and flora, sorry. So to give you some example, it can be risk of wild disturbance from human and chemical outdoors, some animal displacements, some changes also in for animals, some changes in animal behavior, such as attack or defense behaviors, fear, attraction to artificial lights, stress, disease also, or other health consequences caused by the introduction of bacteria. So it's essential to have a better knowledge and understanding of the natural environments where you will be filming. So in order to, that's why we provide recommendation for limiting our presence on site, and we focus on how it's important to prepare and gather information. So again, are there any plant or animal species endangered or protected? If so, how to share the site with them without disturbing them during filming? Make sure to avoid the mating season for animals. Avoid also hibernation periods and areas. So maybe sometimes it can be just better to change the shooting schedule or location. Yeah, so if you want to explore further, you will find it on our website. In addition to this best practices guide, we also developed an accreditation more specific for documentaries. And you can move to the next slide. Thank you. So obviously I had to wrap it up, but if you need more information, feel free to check out our website, and you can also contact me. I will be very happy to get in touch. You have my contact information just here. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you again for CBC for organizing this online event. And I'm very pleased to introduce the next panelist, Belinda Johnson from BAFTA Albert.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Natasha. So hello, Canada. How are you all doing? I'm Belinda Johnson, Albert's International Manager, and thanks to CBC for inviting Albert to Seeds of Change 2025. Really pleased to be here and to hear everybody talking today. So many of you know Albert and have worked on the Albert Toolkit, but for some, this might be the first time that you're hearing about us. So just a little bit of history first. Albert started as a BBC project and as a spreadsheet for productions to work out their carbon footprint so that they could reduce their environmental impact. The BBC understood the value of neutrality and the importance of acting on climate change and gifted Albert to BAFTA 14 years ago. We think the name comes from the Albert Square on EastEnders, but this has not been verified. So if you are asking where the name comes from, it's still a bit of a mystery. The use of Albert Toolkit is now mandated in the UK by all broadcasters, and our work extends to several programs, including, but not limited to, the studio sustainability standards. And this year we saw 4 studios in Canada participate. The average score across all the studios increased from 70 to 77%, which is a clear sign that positive change is happening. The Albert Academy, where Albert has trained thousands of crew. The Screen New Deal, which is a roadmap for sustainability, which has been implemented in Wales. The Biodiversity Guideline for the industry. The Climate Content Pledge, and the Initial Green Rider. Our international partners are Commission of Man and Island, Sustainable Screens Australia and Australia, AFI, which are the audiovisual producers in Finland, the MPO representing the public broadcasters and partners in the Netherlands, CME in Central and Eastern Europe, and we're pleased to announce that Albert has entered into a broadcast partnership in Canada with CBC. Next slide, please. So our vision is a creative, thriving, and sustainable screen industry supporting our transition to a net zero society. And the Climate Action Blueprint, which you see in front of you, is our North Star. It's being created in conjunction with the screen industries, and it provides a foundation for which production companies, broadcasters, studios, and everybody within the industry can drive meaningful change. There are 4 main focus areas that we think are essential to the shift that's needed to a net zero nature positive industry. Each piece of the puzzle has a task force assigned to it and is made up of experts and leaders in the UK industry with sub-working groups focused on specific actions. And I'm going to run through these fairly quickly. Off-screen actions, so this is the real stuff, the implementation. What we really see production teams doing and needing on the ground, focused on energy, travel, materials, waste, biodiversity. So for example, developing a vision for temporary power decarbonization by 2030. Looking at how to reduce the footprint and better measure the footprint of catering. What are you doing to reduce your impact of travel and transport? How can you reduce the impact of materials that you're using and how might you dispose of them? Looking at biodiversity and how to embed a positive onset attitude to the natural environment. Next is culture and capability, and this is where training and education fit. And here we're looking at how we can aim to educate and normalize sustainable behavior across the industry at all levels and in all roles. Content and storytelling. Albert is working with organizations in the UK and across the world. You heard from Lucy Stone at Climate Spring earlier, who we work closely with. We ask the question, how can we highlight creating content to inspire screen audiences to act for a sustainable future? And this is a big piece of work which is ongoing and started with broadcasters signing the content pledge. We look at climate placement, climate themes, climate stories, and climate mentions. Lastly is the measurement and reporting section. The primary focus of the measurement and reporting task force has been to improve the way that we measure and report on data, the findings of which will be incorporated into the planned update to the Albert Toolkit. There's also been a focus on a joint methodology paper, which Albert is working on with SEA, focused on scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. Okay, so let's talk toolkit. Next slide, please. The 2023 Albert Review reported 3,003 completed footprints through the toolkit. A total of 88 Canadian productions completed their carbon footprint using the Albert calculator, and the highest number of footprints of a country outside of the UK in 2023. When I last checked, the Albert Toolkit had 363 Canadian production company accounts, 59 of which had 3 or more productions on the platform. Albert requires that users complete a draft footprint during pre-production, so they can start to think about and understand their emissions and focus on reducing emissions. Across the production, you then track and collect data for your carbon footprint under the following categories. Energy. So from offices to stages to locations to home working, you track your power waste and your energy and gas usage. Transport and accommodation, so planes, trains, automobiles, hotels, motels, or apartments. If you traveled on it or stayed in it, you dot it down here. Materials and waste, so from set construction to production to office paper, catering, batteries, e-waste. This is where you tell us all about the materials that you've used and how you dispose of them. Albert has continued to improve the experience by developing a downloadable Excel tracking sheet, which many of you might not know about. It's called the Carbon Footprint Data Tracker, and a flight tracker, and both aim to assist productions to collect data for input into the Albert calculator. We recommend that productions completing their footprints make use of these tools, which can be downloaded from the resources pages on the Albert website. Next slide, please. So you may have heard that Albert is working on a next generation toolkit. The current toolkit was designed as a learning and engagement tool, and we're evolving that to go further and deeper and to respond to the rapidly changing corporate reporting landscape, where we have broadcasters in the UK as well as international global media partners looking at how we can capture this industry best practice and develop it so that it's suitable for in-depth reporting and actionable decarbonization. And the next gen toolkit will launch late in Q3 of 2025. All existing production account holders will be seamlessly migrated across to the new toolkit and will either be assigned with an Albert Basics account or a production partner account. All users will be able to work out their carbon footprint and follow the carbon action plan, but Albert will only review certified partner and partner country data and productions. Next slide, please. So we encourage you to take a look at the research and guidance available on the Albert website and to keep in touch with Albert through our comms channels. And so thank you very much, everybody. And I'm handing over to Elsa Tokunaga, Environmental Sustainability Lead at CBC. Thank you.
Hello, thank you so much, Belinda, for your introduction and for all of your work that you're doing with Albert. It's a great segue into my presentation because I'll be sharing some of the reporting that we did based off of the calculator. So as Belinda shared, I'm Elsa, the Environmental Sustainability Lead for CBC English Services. I'm sitting in a white room with some plants behind me. I have glasses and black hair with bangs, and I'm wearing a blue t-shirt. So just a very quick overview of CBC's environmental intentions. CBC has committed to embedding sustainable thinking into all that we do. We're also committed to helping the overall industry move forward in its sustainable actions, thinking, and processes. So one of the ways that we do this is to share all of the information that we've collected and learned from back to the industry. You can put my presentation up now, please. So building off of the importance of us information sharing, I'm here to talk to you today about the report that we came out with in January. So this is our second report that addresses carbon emissions in the Canadian industry. A little bit of background: since 2021, we've required all of our productions to calculate their carbon footprints. This report is a result of all the calculators that you started and finished in 2023 and 2024. Clearly, we couldn't have collected this information or come out with this report without your help in your measuring and recording, so thank you so much. Next slide, please. So we analyzed 50 productions from 23-24. These 50 productions emitted close to 7,000 tons of CO2. On average, these productions emitted around 24 tons of CO2 per hour. To put things in perspective, 1 ton of CO2 is equivalent to a one-way road trip from Vancouver to Montreal. Next slide, please. So which production activities contribute most to production emissions? I think we can all see here that travel and transport is responsible for over 60% of overall emissions on productions. Materials are responsible for close to 16% and filming spaces close to 12%. So I think that this graph really represents the importance of focusing our efforts on reducing the impacts of travel and transport on our productions, as reductions in this space will likely have the largest impact. I also want to say that our findings from this report aligned with BAFTA Albert's findings, as well as Radio-Canada, who came out with a similar report earlier this year as well. So perhaps obvious, but I think it's worth stating, the carbon emissions from just travel and transport are higher than the rest of the activities combined. Next slide, please. So what good is all of this data if we don't plan on doing something about these findings? Some overall best practices to help progress your sustainability behind the scenes on your set are to involve cast and crew in the sustainability process from the very beginning. Make it clear that sustainability is something that you prioritize and want to talk about on your production. So make time to talk about it at every meeting. Provide training for all members of your cast and crew. The more people feel involved in the process of sustainable action, the more people that will feel empowered and make suggestions and think about sustainable actions to do. So overall, we need to focus on the emissions from travel and transport. We provide many more suggestions for how to reduce emissions throughout the life cycle of the production in the report, which I'll send in our follow-up document after this webinar. So I encourage you to check out that link that we'll send out. That's all for me. Thank you so much for joining. Next up is Mark Shapland, who is the Climate Lens Facilitator at the Independent Production Fund. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Elsa. Natasha, feel free to bring up my slides. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here at Seeds of Change today. My name is Mark. I'm a white male with dark blonde hair, a red beard, and white glasses with a blurred background. I am the Program Manager and Climate Lens Facilitator at the Independent Production Fund. Today, I'll be presenting the outcomes of the sustainability plans, draft carbon footprints, and budget line items for sustainability that were received during the first year of implementation of new application requirements, which were actually announced at last year's Seeds of Change event. Next slide, please. I'd like to give a very brief context as to when these documents are required during a production lifecycle. The IPF has 2 core programs, the Short Form Series Development Program and the Short Form Series Production Program. Applicants must submit a sustainability checklist at the development phase. If a production is successful in the development program, they receive $30K that goes towards the development of their project. They develop their materials over the summer, and towards the beginning of that process, they receive a free sustainable production and climate storytelling workshop. Next slide, please. These are the application materials due in the production program. I'll point out 2 new additions last year, the sustainability plan and the draft carbon footprint. These documents were submitted by 32 projects who received development financing, completed their materials, and applied to the production program, where they can receive $250K for the production of their first season. These are the documents that I'll be reviewing during this presentation. Next slide, please. Let's start with draft carbon footprints. These are created using both your production budget and schedule. You enter the information you currently have to predict what the total amount of emissions are for your project. Next slide, please. We didn't require producers to use a specific calculator, and so you can see the variety of different calculators used, with equal amounts using Albert and Pear to create their drafts. The IPF requires this so producers have practice using the calculator, have an idea of how many emissions their project is expected to emit, and to have something to compare with their final version. Next slide, please. While I don't have a ton of time to get into the detail, this is to show that the drafts that we received are more or less in alignment with the national average, with the predicted French emissions being higher due to no animated projects on their slate, and they were budgeting less overall for sustainability. Next slide, please. All right, let's move into how projects budgeted for sustainability. Next slide, please. On average, the series that applied budgeted about 4,000, and as mentioned, significantly higher on the English side. 12 of the projects that received financing from us ended up budgeting more, which is great to see, even though this is not part of the evaluation process. Next slide, please. So what did they budget for? Well, 9 budgeted for a climate consultant, sustainability green advisor, or a green PA. The same amount budgeted for hybrids or EVs, and 7 budgeted for green generators or have specific plans to tie into the grid for their production. Next slide, please. Let's move from budgeting to planning. Next slide, please. Similar to budget templates and calculator preferences for this year, we didn't require producers to use a specific template. Next slide. We provided examples or let them create their own, and 21 did, while 7 used the CMF template and 4 used the telefilm template. Next slide, please. These are only plans created in development, but I'm showing the results of both the applications that we received and funded projects together, because hopefully with the materials they create, all of them will go into production with or without us. Here I'm going to focus on the 3 highest emitting sources of emissions related to production, the first of which is travel and transport. Carpooling was the most popular. Other actions included prioritizing fewer locations, locations closer together, or locations close to public transit. And a few are planning to set a no idling policy. Next slide, please. The second sector is materials, of which food and catering is included. 17 are going to ensure that vegan and vegetarian options will be on the list and clearly communicated for catering orders. Half are committing to a vendor that only uses reusable packaging, and 7 are going to donate leftovers after each day. Next slide, please. Regarding set decoration and props, half are going to use secondhand items or repurpose them for a later production. 12 are renting props, 11 thrifting wardrobe. Others are planning to donate materials after production. 9 are going to plan on renting their wardrobe, and a few are going to prioritize locations with 90% furnished sets. And a few more are going to pay a fee to use their, I assume, very stylish actor's wardrobe. Next slide, please. In energy, 10 are prioritizing energy efficient equipment, and a few more are going to have power down policies. Next slide, please. Here are a few other creative examples of climate action that productions are going to take that don't fall into the sections above. Shooting at a virtual production studio, using an all-electric cab company in Montreal, engaging early with department heads, and using green memos and frequent check-ins to ensure everyone knows the sustainability goals of the production. Next slide, please. On to my favorite section, the climate storytelling aspect. In the proof of concept videos that were submitted, there were great stories about renewable energy, specifically in Alberta, compostable items, extractive and destructive methods to derive ingredients for a perfume, and a few had characters or stories that prioritized and appreciated the natural world. Next slide, please. In the scripts and show Bibles that were submitted, we saw that writers ensured climate posters would be put up in schools and or bedrooms. A few were about the harms of consumption culture. A few more were planning to do a climate pass on scripts for the rest of the season that weren't written yet. As writers and creatives, you have so much power in how you tell stories, what you tell stories about, and it can have a massive impact on people that connect with your work. Next slide, please. These are some stats about what we've been able to accomplish so far. The majority of producers that we fund are new and emerging. We hope they will go on to be creative or producing leads on bigger budget projects in the future. And so it's important for the IPF to tee these creators up with skills they need to be sustainability champions in the future. And because of our new requirements, we're seeing an increase of climate stories and behaviors, creative carbon and cost-saving actions. And while these numbers may seem low to you that I just shared, it's important to note that we went from 0 to 1 when these were only optional documents to the numbers you saw today. They're not evaluated, but are requirements, and producers and creators are responding well to these new changes. Next slide, please. While that presentation was a whole lot of data, stats, and numbers, I do want to end on a more personal note. Here you can see a photo of me and my mom, Laura Dern, in the hospital after I suffered a bout of eco-anxiety. Just kidding. That's not me, but it's a still from Big Little Lies in which little Amabella has an anxiety attack during a lesson about climate change. Her mom hires a child psychologist and finds out Amabella is worried about the planet dying. While it's not me, it did reflect how I felt circa 2019 when I read Naomi Klein's This Changes Everything. And I woke up to the climate crisis and the challenges we faced as a society to tackle it. I started taking action in my own life, attending Fridays for Future Toronto strikes at Queen's Park on my lunch break. With groups of tens to tens of thousands of people, I volunteered for a local climate action group, and in 2022 managed to merge my compulsion for climate action with art and started a new role as Climate Lens facilitator at the IPF with a mission to transform our organization and positively impact the productions we fund. No matter what role you have, there is a way to instill climate action into the work you do. Next slide, please. In 2025, while I have many days that I still feel like Amabella in that hospital room, there are more where I feel like Sam from AFC Richmond and Ted Lasso. Thanks to Lucy, who also had a Ted Lasso slide. Sam is pictured in the front row, second from the right. He becomes the face of Dubai Air, the team's sponsor. But soon after the photo shoot and being excited that he gets free tickets to visit his family in Nigeria, his father informs him that Dubai Air's corporate owner is an oil company polluting his home country. In protest, Sam wears a strip of black tape over the company's logo on his jersey. Slowly but surely, he manages to inspire the rest of his team with him, eventually getting Dubai Air dropped as the team sponsor. In the words of Ted Lasso himself, I promise you there is something worse out there than being sad, and that's being alone and sad. I'll add to that and say being a part of a team can be inspiring, supportive, and lead to greater change. I'm so happy for the friends and colleagues I have found in this work and the incredible creative people I've worked with that are enacting change and having big impacts on their audiences and the productions and the crews they work with. Next slide, please. While there are many soccer metaphors I could use here, I'm going to pause because next up is Marcia Newberry, the executive director and founder of Producing for the Planet, who will be discussing a couple very exciting initiatives, one of which the IPF supported for emerging creators. Over to you, Marcia.
Thank you, Mark. That was so great. I've got some interesting stats to share with everyone as well. As Mark said, I'm Marcia Newberry, and I am the Executive Director and founder of Producing for the Planet. And thank you very much for the CBC team for inviting me to be a part of the event today. Natasha, could you put up our slides? Thank you. So if you haven't heard of us, Producing for the Planet is a coalition of Canadian independent producers who have come together to make a formal commitment on climate action and sustainability. Our mission is to motivate independent producers to prioritize sustainability and climate action and accelerate the adoption of sustainable production practices. And this is because we really believe that producers have not just an opportunity, but really a responsibility to lead action in our industry and ensure that we're being sustainable both on screen and off. And if you are a producer listening today and you would like to join the other 98 producers who have made the commitment and joined us, you can do that right on our website at producingfortheplanet.com. Next slide, please. So I have two things that I want to talk to you about today. The first is that we're very excited to announce the launch of a new climate action guide. It's for early career content creators and filmmakers making micro and low budget productions. We were approached by TELUS Originals and the Story Hive team to create a resource for this group of storytellers because they believe, and we completely agree, that sustainability is not just the realm of big budgets. And we want to support new filmmakers learn how to make content sustainably right from the start of their careers. And I also want to shout out to Real Green at Creative BC, Ontario Green Screen at Ontario Creates, and of course the Independent Production Fund. And Mark, we could not have done this with all of their support, so thank you. And in addition to the guide, we've also released a video, Green Producers, The Future of Filmmaking. It's moderated by Smiley Karana and features 3 indie producers who talk about their experiences and the strategies that they use when making their low budget films with a sustainability lens. And this guide and the video can be found on our website at producingfortheplanet.com, as I mentioned. And there's also another action guide that we published last year for production companies. So hopefully there's something there for everyone. Next slide, please. So what's in this guide exactly? Well, you can see our table of contents here. We cover, opportunities for sustainability across all film roles and the entire production pipeline. We cover practical tools and best practices and strategies for reducing carbon and waste footprints, no matter what your budget level. We cover how emerging filmmakers can be part of changing our industry and how they can empower change. And of course, we cover sustainability planning, some basics of carbon footprints, and we have a small section on virtual production and artificial intelligence. And we've also created 2 customizable templates, a sustainability plan and a RAP report template specifically for low and micro budget productions. Next slide, please. So the second thing I'm going to talk to you about today is you all are going to get an exclusive sneak peek at a report that is going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks. So as part of the commitment that our signatory producers make when they join the coalition is that we ask them to report on their actions on an annual basis. And this helps us ensure that the commitment is taken really seriously, and it also helps us track what producers are doing. So this is going to be our very first action report covering 2024. It's going to be a very large report. So I'm just going to give you the tip of the iceberg, a little bit of a teaser. Next slide, please. So some quick highlights. So we received 68 reports from production companies. I think the total number of productions this covers, and this is across all genres, commercials, corporate videos, all the way up to big feature films and TV series. It's over 500 productions that our report will cover. When producers file their reports, we ask them to use a checklist that has over 120 best practices. And we just say, what did you do? What did you actually do in 2024? And the total number of actions they reported to us was 1,886. So it's taking us a minute to go through all of those, but it comes out to an average actions per company of 27, which is actually much higher than we expected. So it's really promising. Next slide, please. So going with the theme of today of action on screen, it's one of the categories we ask producers to report on, in addition to what they did to reduce emissions, waste, and some other things. So what we do for each of those categories is we'll report on the most reported actions and also the least reported actions and do some deep dives. So for action on screen, what we found is that 56% of producers said that they had showcased nature on screen and that the environment was included in storylines or in characters and the world of the story. And as we've heard a lot about today, this is a very powerful way to keep the planet in mind for the audience. You know, I love the saying, we protect what we love. So this is a great result. Also, 46% said that climate change was central to the story of a project that they either had produced or that was in development. And I really love the stat that 35% of producers said that sustainability was also part of the pitches that they were creating and the discussions with key creatives. So, you know, obviously we want these numbers to go up year over year, but this is a really solid base. And it gives me hope that there's maybe a really great pipeline of climate content just waiting to get made. Next slide. So I'll finish with this. We also asked producers to fill out a survey of 12 questions, and this is a peek at some of the results from our money questions. Of course, producers love to talk about money. So we asked producers if they spent money on climate action and also if they found that the climate action saved them any money. And what they told us is that about half of producers said that they were spending money on climate action, and some of them are spending significant money on it, with about 46% spending over $10,000 a year on climate action, and a couple of them are spending over $100,000 a year. At the same time, they're finding they're saving money. So for a lot of producers, it was over 1,000. For 26%, the savings were more significant, over 10,000. And again, several producers said that climate action had saved them over $100,000. And the last thing I'll just finish with is that the other thing we asked them about is climate overages. So this would be an overrun in the budget due to a climate event, because of course, climate change also presents a risk for productions. And 11 producers out of the 68 told us that they had incurred climate overages, and at least one, it had cost them over $100,000. So climate change really can be a significant risk. We'll be monitoring this number very carefully over time. Unfortunately, we would expect it to go up. But I'll leave it there. That's just a couple of details. Keep an eye out for the report, which will be released before mid-May, we hope. And now I will pass it to Lisa Clarkson, who is CBC's Executive Director, business and rights, and production sustainability. Thank you.
It's Marcia. I'm Lisa Clarkson. I'm responsible for production sustainability, and we are the people that brought you Seeds of Change. So it is my enviable task to be the rapper. And don't worry, I don't have slides and I'm not going to sing a rap song. I'm wrapping us up today. This is our third year putting together Seeds of Change, and each year our lineup of speakers with Canadian hands-on production sustainability expertise has continued to expand, to flourish, to blossom. As we heard from the speakers, there's just no shortage of ideas all around us. We heard about and we were focused on climate stories from so many areas of the country and so many genres, kids and music and docs and scripted. And the idea of bringing those stories to you is to try and spark some creative ideas in your own mind about what climate stories you might want to tell yourself. And so I want to give a hearty thanks to so many speakers that we heard from for sharing your insights, for sharing your wisdom with us. And I also want to thank Elsa Takanuga, who's CBC's Environmental Sustainability Lead, Natasha Advani, thank you, and Audrey Larty from CBC's Business and Rights team, who knitted together today's session and who ran the presentations and technology so smoothly. Here's what you're going to get in the next 24 hours. First, you're going to get a link to a recording of the session. And if you had to step away for a little bit, or if you want to see aspects again, you can rewatch it right away. And you can also share that out to others who might learn from what it is that the speakers had to share. We really hope their wisdom has legs. So that's the first thing that you're going to get in 24 hours. The second is so many speakers talked about, you can find this or that on our website, or here's my contact information. Don't worry if you didn't jot that down, because we're going to send you an information page, which is going to have all of that information and a series of links and resources. So that will come out shortly too. And finally, there's so much chatter these days about how to take care of the place that we call home, which is Canada. And to take a page from what Mark Chaplin said, you can bring hope for the future and bring change, even just as one person. And I want to just say quickly that the thought of the change that one person can bring makes me think of a champion of change who is beloved in our industry and who actually appeared in the first Seeds of Change, and that is Tracy Friesen. Tracy was deeply committed to supporting community storytellers and fully believed in the enormous potential for stories to make change for the better. And so I just want to say a few words about Tracy and tell you about the Tracy Friesen Impact Fund, which was created by Story Money Impact, which is the organization she founded. You'll see that we'll share a link in that one pager of links to the Tracy Friesen Impact Fund, and you can donate to that if you choose to. So with that, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today to keep Canada strong and wild and beautiful. And to crib a little note from what Shaylin said, let's not look in the ditch. Let's look together at where we want to go. Thanks so much.